Hello and welcome to Group 1's presentation on sustainability and climate change reporting in Australia. My name is Therese Goodman and I am joined by my fellow students Suze Longley and Henry Williams in presenting our research and impressions of the challenges and implications of the AASB's S1 and S2. Introduced in 2004, AASB S1 and S2 align with the International Standards Sustainability Board Global Reporting Standards. S1 is voluntary and addresses broader sustainability issues, while S2 is mandatory and focuses on climate-related financial disclosures. Today, we'll explore three key questions. Who benefits from the new reporting standards? What institutional barriers limit their effectiveness? And what practical challenges do business face when adopting them? Our research questions have guided the structure of this presentation. First, we considered who benefited from the current reporting landscape, particularly looking at whether these standards serve only investors or the wider community. Second, we explored the institutional barriers, for instance, the lack of skills, frameworks, or data infrastructure that prevent meaningful implementation, particularly in the accounting and auditing industry. Third, we look at the practical challenges faced by businesses, such as the costs, technology limitations, or reporting expertise. These questions have evaluated how effectively AASB 1 and 2 are in advancing transparent and responsible sustainability reporting in Australia. Our literature review highlights several critical concerns. First, the IASB framework is investor-centric, and AASB S2 reflects this by focusing on financial materiality, essentially serving fund providers. Second, double materiality has been proposed to balance internal financial risk and external environmental or social impacts. Third, small firms struggle due to the lack of resourcing, reporting systems, and expertise. Finally, high emissions industries face greater public and regulatory pressure to report transparently, unlike service sectors which focus narrowly on financial metrics. These issues raise concerns about equity, capacity, system readiness across industries. Our research methodology was approached via qualitative research design, specifically thematic analysis of the secondary sources, academic articles, regulatory reports, and government policy documents. The focus was on how S1 and S2 are being implemented and the patterns of disclosure behaviour amongst Australian firms. Qualitative approach was chosen as these are all emerging standards and quantitative data is still limited. This approach also allowed us to analyse the underlying motivations such as legitimacy, compliance, or investor pressure as explored in sustainability and financial theories. Our first key finding is that the primary beneficiaries of S1 and S2 are fund providers, particularly because S2 is mandatory and designed around investor-focused, climate-related financial risk. This reflects ISSB's financial materiality approach, which prioritises disclosure that affect enterprise value over broader societal impacts. From a theoretical lens, this aligns with agency theory, where disclosure acts as a monitoring mechanism. Investors, principals, expect managers, their agents, to act in their interests, and climate-related disclosures helps reduce agency risk. However, this sidelines the needs of other stakeholders like the communities, workers, and the environment, whose concerns are addressed through the voluntary adoption of S1. CPA Australia highlights that this imbalance stems from systemic flaws in our economic and accounting structures. Our current financial systems had assumed unlimited natural resources and ignored environmental limits. Success is still measured by short-term financial performance like gross domestic product, profit, and earnings per share. There is a lack of framework and tools that link natural capital to business strategy or value creation. As a result, non-financial information, such as the environment and social outcomes, remains non-reported, invisible in mainstream reporting. Until these foundational assumptions shift, standards like S1 will struggle to achieve their full potential. The current structures will serve capital markets well, but not support more holistic understanding of the business impacts on society and nature.
My name is Suze Longley and I will be looking at institutional barriers to sustainability reporting. Entities are currently maintaining their standing within society by using disclosures to enact environmental legitimacy. However, these reports may not sustain the demands of all stakeholders due to an inward out focus, prioritising financial performance and the view of shareholders over an outward in focus, prioritising environmental practices and impact materiality. The lack of clear, relevant disclosures for all stakeholders, in part due to unclear guidelines, results in convenient avoidance of factors material to external stakeholders. While GRI guidelines since 2013 require an understanding of biodiversity and are resulting in an increase in disclosures, entities' focus remains on what is material to them. IFRS sustainability standards aim to expand materiality focus within entities through cohesive climate and financial reporting. However, concerns exist that while sustainability standards were established with consultation of invested parties, it was without the involvement of all potentially affected stakeholders. This has a risk of compounding the effects felt by vulnerable members of society when companies partake in greenwashing of sustainability practices that are failing to meet users' expectations. The greater the quality of sustainable reporting, especially when externally evaluated, enabled shareholders' trust to improve, hence reducing the gap in legitimacy. Negative environmental outcomes created by greenwashing are reduced. Substantive risks of legitimacy gap resulting in perceived or actual greenwashing of sustainability reporting exist when there is a failure to follow normative influences expecting externally verified reports. Prior studies showed that reliability of sustainability reporting required regulatory guidelines. Without regulation to ensure external verification of sustainability practices, there is a tendency to selectively report information as entities strive to be perceived as green without enacting change to sustainability practices desired by society at large. Greater accountability through the conceptual framework is aimed for by the International Accounting Standards Body and double materiality analysis. Will there be sufficient force upon entities to comply with changing demands from a dynamic and varied group of stakeholders? These stakeholders increasingly require more than symbolic compliance and lip service from the capitalist elite, pushing for the embracing of long-term sustainability practices benefiting society at large. Mentioning environmental frameworks has not shown to align with following such practices. Industries causing greater damage to the environment are under greater scrutiny, leading to more preparedness for the new reporting requirements. Such industries strive to prove their legitimacy to society as global awareness of environmental degradation demands greater disclosures. Of Australia's largest 50 entities, 80% referenced or used the TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures framework, compared to a global average of 71%. But only 3% prepared the reports in accordance with the TCFD, causing greenwashing and implying a mentality of doing good while not acting on these statements. Some difficulties arise due to the requirement of TCFD stating financial implications of climate-related risks and opportunities and the difficulties to measure. External reporting ensures trust and confidence in climate-related disclosures. Role from the top within organisations leads desire to disclose. Climate information disclosures are greater in entities who are audit clients of the Big Four accounting firms, reflecting isomorphous behaviour. Larger entities also attract greater focus on their behaviour, requiring substantial disclosures to maintain legitimacy within the eyes of society. Auditors positively drive disclosures within entities under higher scrutiny due to greater risk of negative environmental impacts, both externally and internally. The risk assessment analysis based on climate impacts expected under IFRS S2 is to be reported by auditors, while auditors have traditionally differed from standard setters in environmental legitimacy levels. Challenges exist as auditors balance materiality and time to review reports to the level expected by external stakeholders, contributing to a possible audit expectation gap.
Hello, my name is Henry Williams, and our third and final topic presents the practical barriers that companies face in implementing new sustainability standards. Our research has shown that incorporations of new accounting measures are more of a challenge for small businesses than they are for larger corporations. One difficulty presented for small companies is the costly implementation of environmental principles under S1, which presents them with a greater financial risk than larger companies. This is due to the fact that larger businesses have more funding available to them. The reason for this has been argued by SimNet that pressure has been put onto smaller businesses as larger firms have been setting a benchmark in environmental reporting. This has been especially apparent with firms audited by the Big Four accounting firms. In recent years, it is becoming more necessary for shareholders to be informed on the sustainability aspects of the company's operations. This is due to the fact that company directors could become legally liable for lacking the foresight to prevent any avoidable disasters. Companies that feel the most pressure to be straightforward and exhaustive in their reporting tend to be the ones that cause more pollution through their activities. Because of the pollution caused by raw material excavation activities, for example, this results in those industries being more likely to comply with both voluntary and mandatory regulations. This has been illustrated by a few reports dating from 2019 to 2025. Reporting explicit information regarding their operations helps to maintain their genuine accountability, which therefore protects their brand image. Businesses in the logistics or services division, for example, on the other hand, face less pressure as there is more focus placed on investor demands than maintaining an ethical reputation. This ethical oversight often results in greenwashing, a topic which was discussed earlier, a concept of false advertising that links firms with environmental causes. As a result, most businesses are not properly reporting or assessing nature-related risks. A report from 2024 focused on the softwood forest industry has stated that biodiversity is at 4 times higher risk than the financial value of impact risk, due to the former being exposed at a material level. Small companies and businesses lack expertise in reporting, which would not be made any better if additional regulations are implemented without the necessary knowledge, thereby complicating the process further. Part of this stems from the fact that various sources of information are either incomplete or have not yet been implemented. An AASB report from 2024 indicates that environment-sensitive industries consisting of industrials, energy, and materials all contribute to the minimal connectivity in information. The same report stated that out of a total of 1,697 environmental and non-environmental industries, information connectivity has been effectively disclosed by only 306 of them. This was in regard to climate-related impacts on company value. Another example is that supply chain emissions are often unheard of by businesses. This results in companies facing challenges in accurately estimating the socio-environmental and ecological impacts as they cannot track and document the proper data. As a result, economic entities will require funds to train employees to track and keep new records, update software in many cases, and invest in newer, eco-friendly technology to align with requirements. As highlighted previously, without government grants or tax relief programs, small organizations will struggle. In certain cases, companies will hire sustainability finance professionals. The additional expense will likely generate a major issue regarding businesses' financial possibilities. In summary,
to conclude our presentation, while Australia's alignment with the ISSB standards represents a positive step forward towards enhancing transparency, the current reporting framework remains disproportionately focused on financial capital and investor interests. S2, being mandatory, reinforces that focus, while S1's voluntary status results in inconsistent consideration of the social and environmental impacts on businesses. Institutions lack the capacity, skills, and systems to fully implement and enforce these standards. On the business side, small and medium-sized enterprises face resource, technology, and knowledge gaps that make compliance difficult to overcome. Moving forward, we propose a shift from agency-driven accountability model towards a stewardship model, where management sees itself as the custodian of a social and environmental value, not just stakeholder returns. Our study offers valuable insights for both practitioners and policymakers. From the practitioner perspective, our analysis helps identify gaps between the regulatory intention and practical readiness, allowing them to prepare for the realities of mandatory disclosure. For policymakers, it highlights the needs for a more inclusive approach to the standard setting and stronger institutional support, particularly in training and technological integration. However, we acknowledge there are limitations of our study. It relied solely on secondary data. No interviews or primary case studies were conducted. The analysis is cross-sectorial. It doesn't deep dive into how specific industries are applying the standard. These gaps suggest further research could be explored. Thank you. Thank you for your time and attention. We hope the presentation has provided clarity on the challenges and implications of AASB S1 and S2 and the broader issues facing sustainability reporting in Australia.